Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing the Bentley Mulliner Bacalar in multiplayer in Asphalt 9 at Golden Max in its multiplayer season. I made a video about this car previously at 2 stars, and so here you have it at its maximum performance. In that video, I talked about how this car was sort of a clone of the Gallardo because almost all of its stats are very similar to those of the Gallardo. Now, I believe that the Gallardo might have a slight edge over it because while this car is really good, like it's at the very top of Class C, it feels maybe ever so slightly more sluggish than the Gallardo. Let me know if you guys maybe experienced that as well. The Gallardo just feels like a bit of a lighter car, a bit more agile to get around. So I would say most likely at max, the Gallardo is still going to be the king of C-Class on some of the more twisty tracks, with the Aranera Hesser 33 still being the overall king of Class C. And this car, as well as all of the other new cars in the past 4 updates, will be added to my new best and worst cars in each class list, which should be coming out in approximately a week, I want to say now, before the next update drops, which is going to be in 9 or 10 days, given how long we have left in the British season and in the main multiplayer season. So definitely be on the lookout for that. A lot of the new cars that have been added since then have actually been very good. Some of them have been not so much, but some of them are actually new kings of their classes, so definitely something to check out. And also, last time I added a new multiplayer list to it. Previously, I was just doing it based on event times, but in the 4th rendition of that, I added a list so people could see what cars might be better for multiplayer, because generally speaking, the more top speed cars will be more suited for events, whereas in a lot of cases, cars that are more agile will be better for multiplayer, because while they may not potentially get as good of times on the tracks, they're more forgiving and easier to drive overall, and thus might give you a higher win rate. So I am definitely looking forward to posting that. Also, another video coming soon is my test of my 3-star McLaren F1 LM. This car is very interesting, I must say, because while at max it's the new king of Class B on the majority of tracks, at 3 stars I've actually found it to still drive okay, and it's at like 3100 rank or something, but it still goes 238 miles per hour, it has quite good nitro efficiency, and its drifting speed is very good, and its handling and drifting in general are pretty good. Not the very best, but it's definitely a fairly agile car. Now, the very clear downside of the McLaren F1 LM that makes it not as good as it could have been, especially at lower stars, is the fact that its acceleration is so bad. Like, everybody will pull away from you at the beginning of races, especially if you're at lower stars in it, and you have to rely on that good nitro efficiency and top speed to be able to keep up. So while the car is agile and good nitro efficiency and everything, on some of the twistier tracks, I found that most of the time, or a lot of the time at least, I would have a struggle against the Huracans, although I am 16 miles per hour faster in them. But then I also had plenty of races on some of the more top speed oriented tracks, most of them where I would race against a bunch of higher end B-class cars, including Huracans and Apollos and Sin R1s, all around 4,000 rank in my 3,100 rank McLaren F1 LM, and pretty much keep right up with them, because if you're able to get up to them in the race after dealing with that poor acceleration at the start, it's really just about as good as them. Obviously, if you lose a lot of speed, that's going to be a problem, but the good thing is that poor acceleration does not come into play as often later in races, except at the beginning, as you might think. Because it has such good drifting speed, it doesn't have to climb in speed a bunch after any drifting or turning or anything, and so you don't have to worry as much about that later in the race. If you were able to get the F1 LM at least 3 stars, I would say it's definitely going to do decently in multiplayer, probably better than you might expect. Not as good as something like a maxed Huracan or something like that, obviously, because that car is just going to be more reliable overall. You don't have to deal with the bad acceleration. But the F1 LM is definitely a good one to try out, and another video that I'm going to be uploading at some point, hopefully in this season as well, because I really like Slipstream, is the Valhalla. I have that one at 4 stars, and another reason why I think that car is good for Slipstream is because, well, it doesn't have the particularly highest top speed, but also at 4 stars, its nitro efficiency isn't the greatest, and so the Slipstream helps it a little bit in that instance as well. Now, the funny thing is that at 4 stars, my Valhalla goes 237 miles per hour, whereas at max it goes 243. Well, that's actually 1 mile per hour slower than my 3-star F1 LM. Now, the 4-star Valhalla is definitely a better multiplayer car overall than the F1LM, mostly due to the fact that its acceleration is just so much better and you don't have to worry about falling behind at the beginning of races. But I'm very glad I've been able to get these two cars at decent star counts. I mean, not max, but better than I've been able to get a lot of the more recently added cars into the game. And I currently have about 8,500 tokens saved up for the Ferrari season, which will be coming in about 10 days, as I said previously. So I'm hoping that we can get some good Ferraris in there and that I'll be able to start at least one or two of them to a star count where we'll do decently in either events or multiplayer, most likely multiplayer, because the problem at this point is that unless you can max out the new cars, they're probably not going to be better in events than other maxed out cars that you already have in them, because most of the cars that Gameloft adds are not just crazy amounts better than the cars already in the game. They might be better by half a second or a second, enough to give you the edge in events, but only if you actually have it maxed out. So that is why a lot of times in the leaderboards, you see a lot of older cars more often than the newer ones, because people just aren't able to upgrade them to the point where they become competitive again. This race here is probably the closest one I had in the season. Coming up toward the end of the race, I was pretty much neck and neck with Pro Team Mystic for pretty much the entire second half. Like, you can barely even see his little yellow dot under my red one on the map. Races like these are always some of the most fun and the most nerve-wracking all at the same time, because you are pushed to drive your best really in races like these, but also you know that if you make the slightest little mistake, it could be all over. Well, not all over, but I'd come in second instead of third, which would have a big impact on the amount of points you're able to get from the race. Thankfully, toward the end of this race here, I'm able to pull a little bit of head, and I do take the victory here, but he was not too far behind at all. GG. And for our final race in the video, we are going to be on mountain poles, and it is time for me to give my general review about this car. It is a very high-end C-Class car with all-around very good stats, very similar to the Gallardo in terms of performance, although I would not say it is better than the Gallardo. I feel like that car probably still edges it out by a little bit. Here I accidentally go up the ramp because for some reason the wall on the left side like sprung me over or something, and I did not knock down that guy. He wrecked right before I landed on him, so yeah, I had thought I had knocked him down at first, but no, I don't know what he wrecked on actually. So yeah, even if this car is not better than the Gallardo, it's certainly a very good alternative if you did not have that car and you don't mind spending money on the Legend Pass, which I am not going to, although next season's Legend Pass is probably going to be pretty good. This car is definitely a lot better than its D-Class counterpart, which is kind of okay in a lot of aspects. It's not really great in anything, but that awful drifting just kills it. Although I do know that some people can handle it, and kudos to them, because I am not one of them. I also think that the Mulliner Bacalar looks better, and I think this is one of my favorite looking Bentleys, just in terms of looks. I've always thought Bentleys in general were a bit boring looking, but this one I do like. And we take the victory in this final race. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like the video if you've enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!